standing through the singing of our national anthem.
Scouts, attention. Color guard, attention. Color guard, advance. Color guard, halt. Color guard, prepare to post the colors. Scout salute. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in the Scout law. A Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Color guard, post the colors. About face. Color guard, return to post. 2. Color guard, halt. Color guard at ease, scouts at ease.
Please join me in the Girl Scout promise and the Girl Scout law. On my honor, I will try to serve God and my country, to help people at all times, and to live by the Girl Scout law. I will do my best to be honest and fair, friendly and helpful, considerate and caring, courageous and strong, and responsible for what I say and do, and to respect myself and others, respect authority, use resources wisely, make the world a better place, and to be a sister to every Girl Scout.
Well, since today we're celebrating Scout Sunday, and so many of you are decked out in your scouting regalia, I thought it was only appropriate to begin with a story from my own past in scouting. Well, while unlike Father Christian, I never made it to the rank of eagle, I think I was actually a tenderfoot. I think that's as far as I got, and that seems appropriate. Despite that fact, I still had some very important, formative experiences in scouting as a young boy. I want to tell you a particular story that took place in North Carolina, not not far from Atlanta, Georgia, where I grew up. So I was in 7th grade, and it felt like this entire semester had been building up to a 3-day backpacking trip in the Nantahala National Forest, largest national forest in North Carolina. The word Nantahala is a Cherokee word that means land of the noonday sun. And it's called that because this vast, dense forest sprawls in such an immense way across the Appalachian Mountains that the sun can't even pierce to the bottom of the ravines and valleys unless it's standing overhead at noon. It's a pretty dense, intense place, and through that forest snakes the 40-mile Nantahala River. The river's big and it's cold. It's home to a bunch of trout and also some Class 5 rapids. We knew we weren't going to be spending much time on the river, but we also knew that the last day of our 3-day hike required us to cross this river. And that prospect was something that we were all preparing for with a little bit of fear and trembling. We had a good time, but once we got close to the banks of that river, we felt our paces begin to slow and our heartbeats to quicken. Our leaders spent time showing us how to step sideways, feeling our way across the current and over the slippery rock surfaces. We were taught to keep our eyes fixed on a single point upriver so as not to lose focus. So slowly, single file, we began to wade across the river, bouncing to big, cumbersome backpacks on our hips and shoulders. It was scary at first, but about 3/4 of the way across, I felt like I was starting to get a hang of it. And about as soon as I thought that, you guessed it, I stepped on a particularly mossy stone and went face down into the river. And friends, I began to panic. I was short of breath, and my biggest concern was trying to unclip that hip belt that was fixing my backpack to me and pinning me underwater, which I didn't have any success in doing. I fumbled at that clip and was about to lose hope when all of a sudden I felt my pack jerk upward as my friend, his name was Taylor, lifted me out of the water. I grabbed onto his walking stick and caught my breath. And finally, I could breathe again. So that was a pretty scary experience, but it taught me an important lesson. It taught me a lesson about the importance of love in action. Of love in action. And I think in some ways, love in action is really what's at the heart of scouting. And is also at the heart of our faith as Christians. Doing love. Embodying love in action. We see this lesson being taught again and again throughout the gospel, and especially in our passage from Luke today. Jesus, in this passage, has been teaching at the Sea of Galilee. And the Sea of Galilee, some of y'all might know, isn't actually a sea, but it's a very big lake, about 150 times as big as Town Lake. We hear that Jesus gets into the boat of a fisherman named Peter or Cephas, teaches a little more, then asks Peter to let down his nets. Well, Peter's been fishing all night, during the best time of the night for fishing, but even though he's exhausted, when Jesus asks him, he does let down those nets again. And the catch of fish is so tremendous that he changes the course of his entire life. He leaves his nets behind, which is also his livelihood, and he begins to follow Jesus. So Peter models love in action, but I was fascinated to see that he also models part of the scout oath we heard recited today. Part of this oath reads, "I will do my duty to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight." Well, physical strength was required when in his exhaustion, he still went that extra mile and threw the net over the side of the boat one last time. Mentally awake. We know that there are shoals of fish in that lake in Galilee. And I always wonder if Jesus just had better vision to be able to see those shoals a little bit better than Peter. He was just a bit more mentally awake. Regardless, that catch of fish is a wake-up call to Peter to live a more alert, attentive life. And in fact, his whole life changes and becomes getting built around being morally straight, living that love in action. And later in the Jesus story, again and again, we see Peter embodying love in action. He's the one who names Jesus as a Messiah when there's uncertainty around his identity. He's the one who defends Jesus at his arrest. And he's the one who steps out of a boat on that very lake to walk out to Jesus, who's crossed the water. Though he doesn't always get it right, Peter, little by little, grows into a person who lives love in action and ultimately goes on to found the church in Rome. One of the things that inspires me most about Peter is that even if he doesn't get it right the first time, he also never quits. He shows us that if we keep trying and making incremental adjustments in the way we live, God may ultimately start to do something big in and through and in spite of us. What happens with Peter is what happens to all of us. People who are in scouting or who are in the Christian church. As human beings, we're hardwired to react. We're hardwired to react in certain ways. Our nervous system in biology forces us to react to forces that threaten us pretty much automatically for the sake of self-preservation. So when I fell down in that river, my reaction was to panic. And my friend's reaction was probably to jump away, and he even did pull that staff away from me a little bit when I grabbed onto it after he pulled me back to my feet. But if my friend Taylor eventually flinched, he also recomposed and refocused himself so that he was able to respond rather than just react. And that's the amazing thing. If we start to focus more and more on our responses in a given situation, they actually start to become our reactions. So that once was very difficult and laborious and required a lot of deliberate and conscious effort, say putting others first, listening with patience and reserving judgment, or being the first to apologize or forgive, those intentional responses ultimately become our reactions. They start to characterize our nature and who we are. Friends, this is happening all around us all the time. People are making these hard decisions to cultivate a more responsive way of being in the world. And I actually saw this embodied in a beautiful way this last week in this community. I know a lot of you who live in Northwest Hills have been really troubled over the news that we've been processing over the past few weeks about a senior high student, a senior at Anderson High School, who was killed tragically by two Murchison students in a transaction over illicit substances that went horribly wrong. It's been really difficult for a lot of you, and I've had parents reach out to me this week to express their concern. And what we did was create a space this past Wednesday night to give students a chance to process some of the tragedy that had happened and to grieve with one another. It was good that we did this. We got to reinforce for kids a sense that this is a place and a community that's safe, that's been committed along with their parents to forming them in a way that gives them values and intuitions they can trust and rely on. But what impressed me more than anything, what I haven't been able to get over, is that over and over again, I heard parents and students discussing this situation as an opportunity to grow, to respond rather than react, to live in a more loving way, to reach out to the kids that they feel may be marginalized or may feel alienated or alone, in order to embody a little bit more love in their communities. I see that not just here, but also not only here with the youth, but also in a place like HON, Helping Our Neighbors, which is offering a cold weather shelter for people experiencing homelessness in Northwest Austin. Constantly, over and over in our communities, we have eyes to see there are people who are responding with those words we read in the reading from Isaiah. Here I am, send me. People looking to respond rather than to react, and to bring new possibilities of love to life in the world around us. So to bring it back home, because this day is a celebration. It's a celebration for scouting. And I want you all to remember that we are all maybe walking, to stick with this image, in some sort of a river. Our worlds and even our communities can feel uncertain and scary, like those slippery rocks in the Nantahala River. Sometimes we can feel confident, and sometimes we feel shaky. Sometimes we actually fall face down with a pack on our back. But in those moments, the most important thing is to come alongside one another, to pick one another up, and to love one another well. To love one another well and to be that love in action. We as a church and we as troops and DENs are here to help you. And more importantly, God is here. God is here to strengthen and steady you. And in that beautiful reading from 1 Corinthians we read Paul say, it's not I, but the grace of God is with me. I pray that you know that the grace of God is with you. That perfect love that can cast out all fear. I hope that you feel that today in this celebration of scouting as you come forward to receive communion or a blessing. And then as we go over to Huffman Hall afterward to continue our celebration, I hope you know the grace of God with you. Especially as you go forth into those many crossings of your own life, that you know that love and that you can be that love in action. Confident that you always make it with one another to that other shore. Amen. Paul, come on up.
Greetings. My name is Paul Clark, and this is my first opportunity to serve as Scoutmaster for Scout Sunday. I have been in this position since April of last year, assuming the responsibilities from Matt Romansky, who many of you probably know, who served for over 5 years, so there are big shoes to fill. I consider my primary responsibility to preserve that legacy by maintaining the high-functioning troop that Matt left in my hands. I consider scouting to be the fourth leg in the stepladder of the lives of youth. Along with a worship community, a learning community, and home. There's a lot of overlap among spirituality, social development, skills mastery, organization, resiliency, self-reliance, self-confidence, and many, many more qualities. Scouting tends to be the only one that brings a lot of that together under duress. Lead a group of your peers out in the wilderness with everything you might need to survive for a weekend or perhaps a week, including navigation tools, respecting the environment, cooking, and tending to the cut fingers and burnt wrists experienced while doing that cooking. If you'll tolerate some numbers which characterize the state of our troop. Over the last year, over 200 merit badges were earned. Countless sign-ups toward rank advancement. 14 new scouts last year, about 5 to 10 expected this year. There's always a lot of variability in those numbers. 40 rank advancements. 21 members current in Scouting's honor organization known as the Order of the Arrow. 8 of those were new last year. And we had the honor of bestowing the rank of Eagle on 6 scouts. Jack Stanley, Will Reich, Hayden Clark, Dennis Freck, Moses Horn, and Peyton Booth. Scout Sunday is one of the days of the year we strongly encourage scouts to attend service here at our chartering organization. And it's great to see so many scouts in attendance. But please know that we are continuously and sincerely appreciative of the support that the church and the church community have given and continue to give scouting in Troop 511. Thank you, and God bless. And before I let the podium go, I wanted to remind people that there is a reception immediately following in Huffman Hall, so come join us and meet us. Thank you.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. My name is Nathan Jennings, and I'm the chaplain for Troop 511. And these four boys that you see standing in front of you have achieved the Religious Emblem Award that's called the God in Church Program, which is for their age category. This is a program that enables them to learn about their church and their religious tradition. They interviewed members of their church to learn various things. They were involved in service projects for their church, and they were also involved in the service of ministry and worship in their churches in order to grow. The Boy Scouts of America officially believes in God and encourages involvement in the worshiping community, but has no other affiliation beyond that. So this is the responsibility of the church, and so this is all done in the name of St. Matthew. So you, this congregation, have supported these boys in getting to know some of them the Episcopal Church and some of them their own other churches. So congratulations to you all, and thank you for that support. So I'm going to say their names, and Travis is going to get them their religious emblem in the name of St. Matthew's Episcopal Church. So I hereby certify that Vitaly Jennings has completed the God in Church Religious Emblem Program. I hereby certify that Davis Palmer has completed the Religious Emblem God in Church Program. I hereby certify that Austin Tharp has completed the God in Church Religious Emblem Program. And I hereby certify that John Youngdale has completed the God in Church Religious Emblem Program.